Now that all the dust is settled about Lila Rose and her comments about what men need and don't need, what she's really saying when she says men do not need marital relations is that men have no right to marital relations because love wins when NFP is law. That's what needs to be driven home and will be in this video. It's going to take about an hour and a half, okay? We're also going to hear from Pearl Davis. She talks about how when husbands try to wear the pants, so to speak, then they really have no recourse in law. And she goes on and on about this. Or do they have recourse? That's what I'm going to point out. The stuff that Pearl Davis, the missing link she's looking for. Here it comes. Get ready. Then we're going to hear from Chrissy Horton, who I didn't even know who she was till she got on the Lila Rose show. She's pretty outspoken. She more or less admits NFP is closed to life. She stumbles right into it. We're going to expose that. I got so much more to talk about when it comes to this. P.S. We're going to bring in St. Francis de Sales in the end. He absolutely destroys NFP with Introduction to the Devout Life, his book, his well-known book. But what you didn't know, or probably didn't know, is it was originally published in French. The French version, the full version, the non-edited version, has a lot of juicy stuff in there about marital relations. We're also going to talk about during pregnancy, some of the nuance he puts in. That's going to be happening. So like I said, buckle up and you're going to get your money's worth. Hopefully this video is better than David Lee Roth's recent gig. Man, oh man. I think let me get this note up. I think that the joke nowadays is Diamond Dave is cubic zirconia, Dave. I couldn't believe that. Anyway, listen, those guys got to hang it up while they can. I've heard that the rock and rollers, they've sold their soul, and one of the parts of the contract is the devil says you can't stop or you die. That's why they keep going super long. That's part of it. Can't take that to the bank, but that's what I've heard. So where should we listen to first? We're going to go to Pearl Davis. Hold the phone. Where's Pearl Davis? Just a minute. Okay, we found her. Here we go. Let's go, Pearl.
Skip over these retweets.
She's talking about Lila Rose and stuff in this video, so we're going to get a reaction and talk about what she says.
I said girlfriends behave better than wives because, you know, I thought about it. Oh, I made a slideshow for this, actually. I did make a slideshow. And, you know, in a way, getting legally married is putting yourself in a non-traditional relationship.
She's kind of right. Girlfriends do behave better, obviously, because once they're trying to prove themselves or whatever, because they have to get the gig, and once they get the gig, then they don't have to behave anymore because there's no, again, marriage is lawless. So just let me qualify everything I said. Just take it easy. All right, we're going to get there. But that's why she's saying this. Listen, please.
Okay, hear me out. It's actually, yeah. I would argue, it's more traditional to be a girlfriend than a wife.
What she's trying to say is that once nowadays, because marriage is lawless because of NFP, then everything goes out the window as far as marriage law. That's what she's getting at.
Now you might say, Pearl, that's so crazy. Pearl, that's insane. And I would even go further to say situationships act like more of girlfriends than wives. And men that date for marriage have a tendency to never know what that is like, to have a woman completely obedient and on your program, because once you give the woman what she wants, then we go nuts.
We're going to talk.
So here's the ways women can destroy you,
what
right?
The Bible says about that.
So these are the ways women have leverage: police, reputation destruction, as we saw in the first video, family court. And there's like a million other ways. So, you know, feel free in the comments to put things I should add to this.
People, yes, that's right. People. Oh,
hey, everybody.
Shoot. Hold on a second. Let me change it. All right, here we go.
The thing men have is cheating and walking away. Like women being afraid you're going to cheat and women being afraid that you're going to walk away.
So she's saying that the only recourse men have in a marriage is to, cheat or walk out the door. And that's not really Catholic, is it? You can't do that stuff. So they're stuck. That's what her point is. This is why all this MGTOW stuff. Because guys have no authority in their marriage, but they do. We'll get there. Hang on, Pearl. Go ahead.
And the challenge you have is when you get married, you're taking away, you're saying God is going to like smite you down or whatever. You're going to go to hell if you sleep with another woman or walk away. So that's your only leverage. So they're basically saying, they're like, okay, tell your woman no. You are wrong. You're wrong as a man.
Yeah. So this is kind of where the whole Protestant covenant thing comes in. God's in charge of everything. God will govern what's going on and all that. Yes, but the bishop is the one who's got to do it. So there's more to the governance than just God is going to take care of business. We have to have recourse to the here and now, the temporal.
For not being able to say no, you're a woman. You're a simp. I do say that. I do. I'm sorry. I'm a nag or two. All right. But, and to some extent, I would agree. However, when the church comes in and says, you can't divorce or sleep with anyone else ever again, it's like, okay, you're basically saying get cucked.
That's not what the church says, that you can't walk away or you can't commit adultery. Nowadays with Pope Francis, maybe you can, but the church, let's figure out, let me tell you what the church says real quick here on this. This is the stuff that nobody seems to have talked about ever since NFP changed the legal definition of marriage. Let's go. Okay, this is my little, instead of MGTOW, ooh, shoot, hang on a second. We got issues. Hang on a second. All right, so this is what the church says a spouse should do when they're between a rock and a hard place, when the things are really going bad, rather than just, especially the husband, just being a simp and all this servant leadership baloney. Okay, look, it's what is this? This is Sirach, aka Ecclesiasticus, chapter 25. Okay, they go on and on about when things are bad, when she's not cool, etc., etc. You are to cut her off from thy flesh, lest she always abuse thee. Okay, because they explain how when she's not when she's not doing good, when she's not cool, it's really not cool. All right, that's what. So you need to cut her off. This means separate physically. That's what that means. Don't hang out. Really? Is that what that says, John? Let's go to Proverbs 18:22, the part in the Douay Rheims that it's not in any of the Bibles because they scrubbed it out of there, or they just don't have it because it doesn't fit the mold. Like that guy from Saturday Night Live. I don't fit the mold. Listen, Proverbs 18:22. He that keepeth an adulteress is foolish and wicked. So you're foolish and wicked if she's committing adultery or anything that falls under the umbrella of adultery, which is really bad behavior, okay, like apostasy or violence or all that kind of stuff. Adultery isn't just the red letter, okay? It's anything related to that, which is really bad for marriage. If you keep her, you're foolish and wicked. So what are you supposed to do? How do you not keep your wife? I thought marriage was for life till death do us part. Okay, what does the Bible say about that? Matthew 19:9. And all of this was trashed because of NFP law, by the way. But before that, and I say to you, whoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication. That's the line right there. It's not whoever shall divorce, it's put away, because there's two kinds of divorce. There's the bond and from the bed and board. So whoever shall put away their spouse from bed and board, except it be for fornication. That means adultery. That means anything bad. So when bad things are happening, you can't be a fool and be wicked. You've got to get her out. Same with the wife. If he's doing this bad stuff, you got to get him out, okay? And then that's where the canon law comes in, the process, the required due process. All separations are by ecclesiastical judgment, all right? Then those who choose to say, yeah, I don't care about any ecclesiastical judge, they're denied sacraments. They're not going to heaven. This is the law, the only solution that marriage has. We have to get back to this, but we got to know what it is first to start it. Hence the YouTube video, because you can't ask your priest because he won't tell you. He doesn't know anyway. I seriously doubt he knows. Okay, let's go with Pearl Davis. Where's she go? Hello, Pearl. Come on back here. Hang on. Here. Let's let her keep going.
Because how is he going to enforce that no? How can he enforce it? Can he go to the police and say, my wife isn't sleeping with me?
Great question. How do you enforce the no when the husband says, you can't do this, this is wrong? And she'll say, oh, really? What are you going to do about it? Because she's got the courts on her side and the local priest is on her side, because it's all about servant leadership and equal, what do you call it? Equal partnership, and, love is the basis of the marriage and all that. So there's no law there. Who do you call? You separate, but you call the bishop, and you go to Canon Law 221. You want an ecclesiastical separation court. That's what you want. You want a courtroom with the bishop, or judicial vicar, whoever runs the show, whoever is ecclesiastical judge. That's it. That's where you go. There's your courtroom. You don't call the police. You call the local ordinary. The cops can lock a wayward spouse in jail, which they will if you don't do the divorce order or whatever. They'll put you in jail. The bishop can put you in hell because he can withdraw the sacraments. That is the only governance of a sacramental marriage. The Protestants are going to hell anyway, so it doesn't matter what they do. But the Catholics have to do what the bishop says.
No. Okay, you're telling me this is the cops from the Batman movie. Why are you nagging me about my PowerPoint? I made this quick before the show. Can we just... 38. Can we just... All right.
They look kind of funny. I agree.
Are the men really going to lie as good or as well as the women? No. I guess you could do that back.
They
that
won't.
is an
Not
option.
really. No.
Not a bad option. You fight fire with fire. And then she could take your house, your kids, and just ruin your life. But
that's right. Yes, she has the leverage, the temporal leverage, because she can just. I'll be talking to the law anytime, and they'll do what I say. So you do what I say, husband. So the husband has to get tough. He's got to say no, and even if he doesn't have all the temporal law, he should have the ecclesiastical law on his side. And if he doesn't, he still needs to pursue that. You cannot hang out and just go Protestant and just you need to separate. That's what's in the Bible. This is what's in canon law. This is the tradition it's always been until the Beatles, until it all became about love because of NFP.
this is the natural order of the world, right? So God can enforce things on man because God can just like smite you down. So he can say, he could say, okay, you're going to get cancer because you're a terrible person. And then we got women next. But the man cannot enforce anything on the woman. And the woman can enforce everything on the man. So it's actually...
This is where all the make-toe stuff comes from.
Woman, man, children. That's the order of the world now.
Correct.
That's how it is now.
Effectively.
And no amount of praying is going to change this because the relationship is only traditional, quote unquote traditional, if the woman says it should be.
That's right. It's only traditional if the woman says it should be. So you get this down up front before the wedding. There's going to be no insubordination. And if there is, we separate and I go to the bishop. That's how it is. It also says, I think it's, I'll find it real quick. I'll show you. This is also in Sirach. A woman, if she have superiority, is contrary to her husband. So she cannot have superiority. You cannot allow that, okay? Your local bishop will say, no, you have to allow that or the marriage is invalid. You cannot consent to you being superior. You have because she was first in sin, but second in creation, she has an unequal dignity to the husband. Okay, he has more dignity. He's superior in authority. You have to have that authority, or your situation goes out of control. Because of what Pearl Davis correctly says, women tend to just not always. They think differently than guys. Okay, they're just more emotion. Right. So there you have it. It's right there in the Bible. If she has superiority, she is contrary to her husband. I haven't looked at what the other versions say. I would imagine if they've probably cleaned that up a little bit. All right, let's go back to Pearl here. Hang on a second. Here we go. What else you got?
And can we be honest here? We are crazy. Our default is just like insane.
Crazy hot matrix. Yep. That's right. Oh, shoot. Doggone it. On that note, let's look at Sirach one more time. Where is it? Hang on. A woman's anger and impotence and confusion is great, How about that? That's exactly what Pearl's saying. You know? Okay, that's why, like, especially college educated, 80% women file for divorce. Stupid, dumb, what they're doing, but they're the ones doing it for the most part, for the overwhelming majority. Okay, go, Pearl, go. Almost done on this.
Because of that, you cannot have a traditional relationship in 2025. It doesn't exist because it's all dependent on if the woman feels like it.
Yeah, you can't have a traditional relationship. That's essentially it, unless you set it up ahead of time, unless you get it set up correctly. Whereas we identify the contract, the terms, what the marriage is, and if you don't do that, whoever doesn't do that is going to hell. Unless we get that straightened out, you can't have it. That's what she's saying. You can't just go into marriage thinking, oh, no, everything's going to be backed up fine. It'll be what it is. It's going to work. Nope, nope, nope. Sorry. That's what she's getting at. Now, let's go to the next part of Pearl Davis. I'm going to push pause and find.
Imagine a woman putting all that out there. Like, what would be the goal of a woman doing
Lila
that?
Rose
And how would that
she has
reflect?
to say.
How does a woman do that reflect on the man she's with?
Well, I mean, it depends on what society they in, but I think at the end of the day, they do that a lot.
Yeah, she's saying, how can Lila Rose say men don't need marital relations? How can and they shouldn't, and or whatever? How can anybody say this publicly? What's going on here? Listen what these like secular guys are saying.
Because they just lacing the game. They telling other pimps. That means the other girls. They're telling, hey, look, I lace my husband like this. This is how I pimped him. This is how I got him arranged in our relationship. And you guys need to follow suit. They try to actually normalize a lot of it, right? Haven't you seen those articles by some weirdo site?
This is all the NFP stuff, all the theology of the body stuff. It has to be, you've got to keep the propaganda going, circulating, constant. NFP Awareness Week, all this stuff has to be propped up. Otherwise, nature takes over and people go back to normal. Like Pearl Davis and these podcast bros, whoever the heck they are, just regular secular people, and everyone else in the rest of the world instead of this crazy USA stuff.
Psychologist, female feminist, who's out here saying, hey, look, it's okay. I think it's therapeutical for women to cheat.
Therapeutical.
Right?
Oh
to
my
have
gosh.
second relationships in their marriage.
Yeah.
So they do that a lot. They tend to kind of like attempt to normalize it in some intellectual, spiritual, not even intellectual. It's mostly like some spiritual blah, blah, blah.
Sound familiar? Normalize it, spiritual blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're using procreation or the procreative act to not procreate, and we're going to bury it in spiritual Christopher West, blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what's going on. And we're going to spread it all over the place. And it's going to look stupid once we start doing it because the normal people are going to look at us and go, what the heck? Which is exactly what happened to Lila Rose. It's like, what the heck? Everyone's reacting is negatively, like crazy. Okay, so we're going to, I'm going to try, this is what the purpose of this video, explain some of the stuff that I don't think anyone else, I can't find anyone else anywhere on YouTube that's saying what I'm saying about why she said you don't need men don't need relations. It's because men have no right to them. That's all she's saying. You don't need a lot of stuff. You don't need food like I think Andrew Wilson was saying, just once a week, right? It's like there's all kinds of stuff you don't need, but in marriage you have a right to this. And NFP says, no, you don't have a right. So this guy's explaining how this is the way the feminist Catholic women got to control the stuff, okay?
Like the energy, vibes, gems, vibrations.
Yeah. So he's saying you got to get into the soul, the heart, the feeling. That's exactly what unity is in NFP. It's a non-legal definition used as a legal definition. So in other words, the way I feel is law. That's the tyranny of unity. Like it says in the title of the video, the way I feel is law. NFP gives me that legal right because I have a right to unity.
And so I think that at the end of the day, they just end up trying to convert it to a mainstream topic, to be acceptable.
Yeah.
NFP was not mainstream. NFP was like, what the heck is this? Okay. But you're talking about basically giving people Catholic contraception. They're going to try it real hard to get there. Okay. So it was bishops publicly were like, no way, this is bad, can't do this. And the church taught it was wrong, always did. Casti Connubii, I've talked about this a ton. Okay. There's all the haters out there, the deniers, but P.S. I'm always the one who is like, come on, bring it on in the comments section. That's where we can actually get down to business and hash it out versus just a convo gets a little tough. We got to be precise. But you can't win in print if you're not right, okay? So anyway, P.S. when you hear me say something you don't like, disagree with, want to comment on, don't be shy.
Yeah, and what's crazy? I'm not that religious, but I feel like when it comes to this,
she isn't religious.
How do I have more religious beliefs than like women?
I think because her mom was feminist to a degree, so she's kind of fighting back, and she's found her niche there. She's like, this isn't cool, all this feminist stuff. That's why she says women shouldn't vote, men should be in charge, women shouldn't talk back to their husbands, all this old-fashioned stuff.
Like, when I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to henpeck your husband. Like, I understand, like, it happens at times. Like, I do understand, like, we're women, but it's like, come on. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't understand how it's like, I, a non-religious person, understand the natural order of the world better than women that claim to know the Bible so well.
Well, I guess when you just look at it, right, Pearl, let's start with story number 1. Like, Eve defied God from the jump. So I don't know why it would change in 2025. They couldn't get it right on day one.
This is good. This is really good.
You get what I'm saying? Like, so they always are going to defy. Like, okay, I mean, girls don't even get that much that Eve got, right? And Eve kind of set the trend. She was like, look, girls, I was a trad girl, right? Yes. I did what I was supposed to do. Eve was the trad wife. The snake came. And I changed my mind.
Boom. Right there. That's right. She discerned. The snake came and tricked her, and she changed her mind. Sound familiar? This is what happens. This is why we have to set marriage up in objective law, because no one's allowed to change their mind. But women tend to do that because they see things, they feel things, they go for things. You know what I mean? That's it. Whereas guys are like, wait a minute. Okay, so he's got to be in charge. That's the way it's set up. Listen, let's keep going.
And so I think at the end of the day, that's just what they're going to do. I think that's the lesson out of the dang Bible.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the lesson out of the dang Bible. Nothing new under the sun. Eve was the first feminist, and Adam let it happen. So don't be like Adam, okay? Because it's like natural. The women are going to kind of do this. They feel stuff. It's not all, but a lot. It's kind of it's just female nature. It's right in the Bible. It says it. They think differently. They do differently. And Pearl at least admits it. Okay. Now, let's get to our next part, the meatier part. We're going to go to Lila Rose, aren't we? Here she is. Look at that. Get ready, you guys. Get ready. What are we talking about, Lila?
Goes off with your cycle, and you're still, you're obviously intimate with your husband, and you do conceive a new life, then that's beautiful. Like, you embrace that life.
Exactly.
But it's a posture of openness instead of hostility or negativity.
A posture of openness instead of negativity. It doesn't matter, because she's talking about NFP, of course. Doesn't matter what your posture is, openness or not. You are using nature to avoid nature's consequence. That's what you're doing. It doesn't matter how your posture is. Okay. You could have an open to life posture with artificial contraception, same thing.
But of course you can space.
Yes, you can discern.
Especially when there's all these different factors that
Of course you can space. Yes, you can discern, she says. Like Adam, like Eve in the garden, she discerned because she got tricked. She got worked, okay? Yes, you can space your kids, but you can't do it while using the marital rights perpetually. That's what Pius XII defined NFP as the perpetual use of the marital rights while avoiding the primary. He calls it duty, but it's not a duty. It's nature, because he's contradicting himself. So Pius XII has got problems with NFP. He's the one who started the whole thing, but he calls NFP correctly that it's perpetually using. It's not spacing. you're not spacing the act, in other words. Okay, keep going.
Face in modern life. And that doesn't mean you're contracepting. That means, like you said, you're keeping sex sacred and you're not contracepting the sex. There's going to be periods, intermittent periods.
It's about keeping it honest, as St. Thomas Aquinas would say, which means you have to be pursuing procreation. Okay, so because Lila Rose, which we're going to get to eventually, believes that procreation is not primary, she says love is primary. She doesn't use the primary word, but she effectively says that. So she's saying as long as you don't upset the nature of the act, it's cool, as long as you have this openness and good reason. Hang on.
Of abstinence.
Exactly. Yeah. You said that beautifully. And so we do the Marquette method, and I'm charting, and it said low. It was like low. And I was like,
okay, so that's it. Let's skip to the next part. 5141. Hang on. Right here. Okay, so this is when she's doing her NFP Marquette method, and she gets pregnant. And look at her like idyllic husband there, Mr. Cool.
It's a pretty young baby in his hand.
That's fine. That's cool.
I'm
Great.
crying right now.
So she gets pregnant.
How old are you, Christian? 7 months?
You're
Almost.
6 months.
Right, he's at 6 months, yeah.
Great. Yep, she's pregnant. NFP failed. NFP blew it. NFP didn't work. NFP messed up. Can you believe that? Yes, you can.
I like cry every time.
I'm going to cry. But look at this baby.
But like it all turned out okay, right?
It all turned out okay, right? Well, why were you trying not to have the baby if it was all going to turn out okay? Of course it does. God doesn't mess around like that. Sorry. Hang on.
So this is where it kind of all shifts. I'm going to get really emotional. Every time I talk about it, I get emotional.
I'm really emotional.
He's born.
This is where she messes up.
I
this
look
is
at
where
him
she makes a mistake.
And I'm like, if it was up to me, you wouldn't be here.
I made a meme about this. She looked at her new baby. She says, if it was up to me, you wouldn't be here. That's culture of death right there. That's because NFP is not open to life. It's closed to life, which she is just about to admit. Let's go to our notes real quick. Okay, here. What do we hear about what's supposed to happen with having babies and stuff like that? Just a minute. Hang on. Where are you? Okay. So we got to read the Bible literally, unless untenable or necessity requires. That's what Pope Leo says. So we got to just do what the Bible says. In other words, like Protestants, what the Bible says is what we do. That's it. That's why you're accused of being a Protestant when you say what the Bible really says. St. John Vianney, if you only knew the women who will go to hell because they did not bring into the world children they should have given it. Okay? Yes. So she says if it were up to me, this little baby, you wouldn't have been here. That's murder. Check it out. Any woman who does not give birth to as many children as she is capable is guilty of murder. Okay? That doesn't mean you have to max out the number. You have to try to have 27 kids, but you can't. You have to just be natural. You have to continue, okay? So guilty of murder because it's metaphysical murder. God knew you in the womb before you ever formed, and he wants those kids, okay? He's planning on them. He's got plans for them, but you quote, murdered them with your plan. That's what the plan murders. I think there was one other. We should find 1 Timothy. Oh, shoot. Hang on. I got to find one more verse. Okay, it's right here. So Adam was formed first, then Eve. That's why she is lower in dignity, because she was the first to sin. Okay, and then Adam was not seduced, but the woman being seduced. There you have it. That's right there. That's super right in your face. And this is what St. Thomas Aquinas and others talk about. St. Robert Bellarmine, lots. Okay, so now we got a problem. The fall. Adam's in trouble. Eve's in trouble. So Adam has to work. But what does Eve have to do? She shall be saved. How shall she be saved? Through childbearing. How shall she be damned? Through not childbearing. Okay? So she is saved through childbearing if she continue in faith, love, sanctification with sobriety. That means you have to raise the kids in the faith and stay sober, of course, and pray and the whole bit. So love is willing to go to the other. Okay, so she has to continue. That's the she'll be saved if she continues. This is why it's murder if you don't do that. Guilty of murder. All right, let's go back to you know who, Chrissy, and she talks about how she would have, if it were up to her, this baby wouldn't be here. That's why the Council of Trent calls it murder. Okay, when you avoid pregnancy.
And I think that with and I have number 6 now too. And if it was up to me, neither of them would be here. And that's when I became just like fully convicted to being open to life.
That's when I became fully convicted to being open to life. Was she partially convicted to being open to life before that? I thought all NFP is open to life. Oh, really? No, it's closed to life because if it was up to me, you wouldn't be here. Not being here is not open to being here, or is not you're trying to not have people be here. If it were up to me, you would not be here. It's not, I'm open to you. No, open to life is, it means marriage has no, the conjugal act has no orientation. Rain or shine, okay? It's going to happen either way. There's no orientation, all right? It's like, well, I don't know if that's the best analogy. The conjugal act is oriented toward procreation, but now it's just oriented towards openness. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That means it's basically oriented towards feminism. It's oriented towards love on whoever has the stronger personality. And it says a woman's anger hath no boundaries. It says that in Sirach, hell hath no fury like woman scorned. So, dude, she's going to take over. That's, unless you do, she is. That's how it's going to be. Let's keep going.
Like, I can't imagine a world without them. And I mean, you see it, like I was so scared and anxious and I was doing everything in my power. But this is why the church has this, because I just learned for me, like God knows better than I do.
This is why the church has NFP. No, number one, the church doesn't have NFP. NFP is a feminist, modernist invention of modernist popes that say it's okay when it's not, because it violates nature. It goes against nature. You can look at my other videos from Casti Connubii, which I mispronounced that word. I call it Casti Connubii because AI told me that's what it was. So anyway, violates nature. All right. So the church doesn't give you NFP. Let's go back. I talked too much. Hang on. We're going to listen to what she said one more time.
And I have number 6 now too. And if it was up to me, neither of them would be here. And that's when I became just like fully convicted to being open to life. Like, I can't imagine a world without them. I mean, you see it, like I was so scared.
She wasn't open to life before with NFP.
Everything in my power. But this is why the church has this, because I just learned for me, like God knows better than I do, He knows better than me. And if, like I said, if it was up to me, they wouldn't be here.
He knows better than me. And if it were up to me, they wouldn't be here. So it is up to you to use NFP. And NFP plans, it tells God, screw your plans, I'm doing my plan. Because I know better than you, but if God knows better than you, then why are you doing your plan? Duh! That's all contraception is. Move over, God, we're doing our thing. It doesn't matter how you get it done. Doesn't matter. Okay? You can kill your baby with a steamroller, or you can murder your baby through NFP. That's why, by the way, Casti Connubii 108 says the NFP is the sin of the perfecting the sin of perfecting this. Shoot, I got to go to that. Just a minute. Never mind. I just remembered the art of sinning in a subtle way. Okay, if you run your baby over with a steamroller, that's not very subtle. Okay, but if you murder your baby through planning, that's the art of sinning in a subtle way. What we're getting at, okay? This is why this NFP stuff can flourish, but it's starting to come to the surface now, and the feminism and the culture of death is coming right into Lila Miller's studio. Lila Rose. Why do I call her Lila? Sorry, Lila Rose.
And so doing NFP, I was charting, I was doing things was doing what I could, discerning in the way I thought was doing, but
discerning, there we go again. She's discerning. You can't... She just said, God knows what's best. I didn't know what's best. My discernment says no babies. Then don't do the thing.
I was still blessed with this baby.
She was blessed. So she's saying, we're not going to do the blessing. We don't want to have this blessing. And how can that, if that's not God's will, you can't do it. This is why you have to comply with nature if you're doing the conjugal act, which is the natural purpose. You can't, it's like, you got to eat the whole Oreo, not just the white part inside. Got to have the whole thing. You got to go with the natural consequences and not tweak the timing to get what you think, your discernment, like Eve discerned. She started thinking, the wheels in her head turning in the garden, like, ooh, this looks good. And, oh, it couldn't be that bad. Did the devil say, did God really tell you not to eat this? I mean, come on. Is that what he really said? And like in Gaudium et Spes, I think it's 48, one of those. It says, surely you don't believe that the conjugal act is for procreation alone. Surely you don't believe it. It's the same dang thing, man.
And so that's what fully convicted me to being open to life.
That's what fully convicted me to be open to life. As I have said, NFP is closed to life. That's all it is. You're trying not to have a baby, closed. Okay? If you're trying not to let customers come in the door, you close the door. You don't say, well, we're open to customers. Even though it's after hours, we're open. No, you close the doors, okay? In the same thing. You've closed the window to let it's so dorky, but people. This is why the non-religious people can see this stuff, and all the normal people are looking. It's like, look at these trad wives with their feminism, and it's everywhere because no one can disown NFP publicly. Me, got anyone else who wants to come on? By the way, if you ever want to come on the YouTube channel and chat it up, dust off the lens on your webcam.
And baby number 6, we did not do NFP. At that point, I was like, I'm feeling good. Like, things are good. But I will say this, going back to the sacredness of sex, between 5 and 6, we said we're just going to abstain at this point because the Marquette method is like and I'll still use Marquette method. I am not trying to bash the Marquette.
I guess that's it for that. So they abstain, and that's fine. If you want to, if there's plenty of times for abstinence. During pregnancy is one, okay, and then postpartum, and I mean, there's all sorts of times when abstinence is the thing. So it's almost like secular people have to invent Lent. Like, who is it? Joe Rogan has something called Sober October. That's basically his little Lent. He's got his secular Lent, right? No. So the NFPers say, oh, this abstinence is really good for, developing your spiritual. There's plenty of time for abstinence in nature. It's during pregnancy. That's when you're supposed to be abstain during pregnancy. That's when you're supposed to. I'm going to get into that later, okay? There's a whole video about it I did. I think it's called During Pregnancy is Gay. Because, you're not pursuing procreation. What are you pursuing? Okay. Let's get to the next timestamp, which is 57, I think. Hold on. Ooh, there it is. Let's see, 50.
Most meat sticks contain
All right. So here she goes. She's talking about having a bunch of babies close together.
I mean, I don't know what the Lord has planned, but I think if I continue using NFP, educating myself, getting a coach, I can space them out the way, that I hope that God,
What did she just say? I'm going to continue using NFP, and I hope to space them out the way that God wants me to. Hold on. Let's hear that one more time. Hold on.
Yes, I've had them close together, but I don't think, I mean, I don't know what the Lord has planned, but I think if I continue using NFP, educating myself, getting a coach, I can space them out the way, that I hope that God, I'm still following his plan, but spacing them out, to meet my medical needs. And
oh boy, God knows what everyone's needs are. If you think you have all these crazy needs or whatever, then no relations, because it's not God's will to have a baby. If you've discerned that, okay, sorry, you don't do the thing where the babies come from. That's what. But if you otherwise you're cheating nature. That's all you're doing, and you're violating nature. There's a lot of ways to violate nature, but that's one of them. Okay, so like she just admits she's stumbling over her words because she's effectively admitting NFP is not God's plan. It's my plan. And my plan sometimes isn't what God's plan is, but whatever, it's open. And Lila Rose likes me and we're on the show and it's all really cool, right? And John Paul II's a saint, so whatever, that's where we're at. And no one's allowed to criticize this or talk about it because because the conclusion is NFP is intrinsically evil. Oh, brother. You admit, you get no friends, no traction, no nothing.
And my family's needs too, like we have a lot of young kids and I would like a little bit of space, but I also think now that our baby's a year, now it's like, okay, like we got to grip. It takes us about that year and then we kind of get like a grip on things and yeah.
What is so powerful is that, and there's so many gems in what you're saying, but that the Lord has given us all the tools.
Yes.
Which is crazy. There is abstinence. You can't.
The Lord has given us all the tools. It's called prayer and grace and just doing what the Bible says. We don't need any tools.
And abstain in your marriage. And yes, it's like, well, what about the man needing sex? And like you said, like that's just a cultural narrative.
Okay, what she's trying to say is it's a cultural narrative that the husband wants the marital debt and he doesn't need that or whatever. What she's saying, like I said in the beginning, this is where NFP law thwarts marital debt because marital debt is the right over the body for acts, okay, which I've shown in different videos. But maybe I'll show it real quick. Hang on, let's look right here. Let's look at this. I think it's in here. Doodly-doo. Where is it? Right here. Okay, here. Yes, 1917 code. Matrimonial consent is an act of the will by which each party gives and accepts a perpetual and exclusive right over the body. That's the legal object of consent. Objective, finite, definable, understandable. A right over the body. For what? For tattoos? For tennis? What? For acts, which are of themselves. That means no need for love, no need for feelings, no need for unity, no need for good vibes, no need for respect, no need for anything. The legal contract of marriage, if you want to freely enter it, you can, but you got to know what it is. You get the right over the body for acts which are suitable for the generation of extreme tenderness and super duper groovy feelings. No, for the generation of children. That's the contract right there. It's in nature. It's in law. It cannot be changed. You can change canon law, but you can't change natural law. You can't change marriage law because the church is infallible the way it defines marriage. Okay? Canon law is not infallible. But the definition, when two canon laws contradict, we have to go with tradition. That's how it works. So there's canon laws that say that. You have to reconcile each other. Now, here's the new canon right here. 1983 code, after the spirit of Vatican II blew through town. Matrimonial consent, so far so good, is an act of the will, so far so good, by which man and a woman, in case you didn't know that, through an irrevocable covenant. Okay, how many covenants are revocable? Whatever. They've changed this. It's no longer, they don't even use the word contract here. They just say a right over the body. But now they add filler words to make it sound good. The covenant is irrevocable. Okay, mutually give and accept each other, because you used to have right over the body for acts suitable for the generation of children. Now you just have to mutually give and accept each other to establish marriage. So marriage consent is to establish marriage. Marriage is marriage. That's what the new one says. My point in showing these two different canons is the 1917 and the 1983 is they are legally identical. Just because you change the words doesn't mean you can change the law. You can't. So mutually give and accept each other is the same thing as right over the body. That's biology alone, okay? There is no legal definition to each other. You have to, this total gift of self, no. The rest of this is just fluff filler words, all right? Where were we here? Let's see what we were talking,
That basically says like men are like animals and they have to be able to do this sexual thing. Otherwise they're going to go crazy. And
men have a right. Women have a right. Even St. Thomas Aquinas, he mostly says the wife has got to realize that she has the right to request the marital debt. Because there's a lot of times when guys are like, no, whatever. It's not a cultural narrative. It's a legal right. NFP says it's no longer that legal right because now we have the right to unity, the total gift of self, the gift of each other. Okay, that means I have a right to receive your charity, and if you're not giving me your charity because you're just giving me debt with no feelings, I get to refuse that. Therefore, I'm going to now say myself, Lila Rose, that you don't need this stuff, because what she's really saying is you don't have a right because NFP says so. Hang on.
the reality is there's whole vocations that are celibate. Yeah.
Oh, this is so stupid. Yeah, because she's saying, look, all these priests, they're celibate, so why don't you be celibate too? So I can be a feminist and I don't have to have all these kids. That's all this is. It's so retarded. Priesthood is a different gig, obviously. It's not the same contract. You're giving your life to the congregation and to God via service that way. When you give your life to your spouse and the contract and the kids, that's part of it. That's what you get. That's how it works. That's what, man.
Yes. And these are virile men. These are like men's men. They're not just like, oh, you're like
you
not
just couldn't
interested.
get any.
You're not interested in sex, or you didn't get any interest.
You
and
have
that's
no
why
game.
you became a priest. And it's like, no, some of the most masculine men I know are priests.
I mean, can we all talk about Father Mike Schmitz and how handsome he is?
I don't care about Father Mike Schmitz.
Schmitz has not been name dropped yet in that way on the show, but I'm glad it's happened. All right.
Mike Schmitz.
By the way,
I mean, he doesn't hold a candle to my husband. I have to say that, but I'm just saying.
I don't even care about the whole Father Mike Schmitz thing. I don't. It's just it's stupid, but who cares? It's a side topic. NFP is the main thing. Okay, and her saying that Christ is celibate, the priests are celibate, so your husband has to be celibate too, to dance around my feminism, because this is the new model. And like the guy was saying in the beginning, the homeboy, he's saying this is the way all the chicks telegraph how to get it done. Hang on.
Yeah. I showed him to a girlfriend who's not Catholic, and she's like, when's Mass?
Oh, shoot. Hold on. I think we're almost done with this little section.
But he's a great example of
59 minutes.
What we look at as a society as like manly.
I remember
he's chosen the vacation.
Talking to a philosopher, a bioethicist about this, and he was saying we need food. We need air to breathe. We don't need sex.
Do I need to talk about this anymore? Let's hear what she says.
Like that is not something
it's a gift.
It's a gift.
Okay, there it is. There it is. It's a gift. This is JP2 Boomer Orthodoxy. Christopher West, hello. It's a gift. The only thing we owe each other is love. That's one of his little. I could even show you that clip. I will later if we want to. Anyway, if anyone wants to see that clip, I'll give it to him in the comments. The only thing we legally owe each other in marriage is love. That's what Christopher West says. This is what she's saying. It's a gift. So there is no marital debt. There's marital gift. And like JP2 says, we must respect the gift, because the new legal basis of marriage is no longer the right over the body for acts. It is now the personalist norm. And if you look at Vatican II, and I've done this on a lot of my other videos, they sneak in love in the number one position. They go marital love and conjugal act, but it's like, oh no, there's no such legal thing as marital love. That's not a legal thing, but they're saying the institution of marital love and marriage. No. Okay, so screw the gift. It's not a gift. It's law and it's nature. Sorry to be the bad cop here. That's what it is. And like I said, we're never going to get back to fixing marriage until we fix the law that marriage is. And you can't fix the law if you can't define it. And gift of self, total love, blah, 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 is a bunch of jello, and it cannot be defined. Therefore, there's no marriage. There's no essence, and there's no construct. All you got is feminist dominance
of someone else and yourself coming together, becoming one flesh. and it's designed to bring life into the world.
Exactly.
So there's a special path for that.
All right, we got becoming. Oh, wait. Hold on a second. 59, coming together and becoming one flesh. Like I said, that's. Oh, brother, what am I going to say about this? One flesh is more of that has to be defined. That just means you're supernaturally one flesh, or even naturally one flesh, because that's what the conjugal act does. But it has nothing to do with relationship or feelings or soulmate or anything. But that's what she says it means. Let's go to 101.05. Hanging with me, guys. We're getting through this. It's for the record. What else does she have to say? Hopefully we don't get a commercial immediately.
For us. And the underlying principle is that sex is designed to be intimate, to bring intimacy and oneness. But
it's designed to bring intimacy and oneness. No one knows what oneness is legally, and it's designed to bring intimacy. Really? Wait a minute. No. That's not what it's designed for. It's only designed for procreation. Other things can happen, but it's not the reason, the purpose, the essence of it, okay? But if you have NFP as legal and natural, if it's natural to not have babies, then you have to say everything else is part of nature. That's why she's saying what she's saying.
Primary design of sex, actually, like the reason where bodies are designed sexually, from a ontological standpoint, is to bring life into the world.
So she has to say the obvious, because we've all forgotten that, like men and women are different, and the marital relations are for babies, in case you didn't know, okay? She has to say this, but it doesn't matter. Like I said, in Vatican II, they've already placed the personalistic norm ahead, way up there, all right? It's not even, the personalistic norm is the number one thing, and all this baby stuff is downstream of that. Love number one, babies number two. Babies are the fruit of our love. Wrong. Babies are the fruit of the contract, and love can be the fruit of babies, basically.
Right. That doesn't mean everybody can. There's infertility. That doesn't mean that every time you have sex, you can bring life into the world. Right. But that's the design. And when you frustrate the design intentionally, that's where you break the moral law.
When you frustrate the design intentionally, that's when you break the moral law. How about the natural law? Okay, yeah, moral law is natural law. So when you frustrate the design, if you go to Casti Connubii 54, the natural destiny of the conjugal act is offspring. How do we frustrate that design? By trying to make the natural destiny of the conjugal act not offspring. How do we try to do that? Because it's impossible to do that completely. Through family planning, that's how we try to do that.
Like there is a moral God. And it's not just for, this is the other thing. This is very controversial.
I know.
So stay with me, guys, who's listening. But this isn't just for Catholics.
Right.
I mean, before the 1930s, every Christian denomination.
All right. So she goes into contraception, which we already knew. Yeah. As I've said in other videos, the increase and multiply is a office of nature, and it was a duty back in the Old Testament because there was no people, okay? But marriage is no longer a duty, it's no longer a precept. You don't have to get married, you don't have to have kids. If you're married, you don't have to have kids. You don't have to use your rights. Protestants say it's still a duty, that way they can have an exception, all right? So Pius XII was the first to get that going, saying marriage is it's a duty. Therefore, we can have an exception called NFP. Can't bring up nature, though, because nature, that's where then Vatican II stepped in and tried to clean up the mess. Watch my other videos. I've hit that one hard other places. Let's go to, we're at 101. Hang on, let me check out where.
John Calvin called in the 30s every Christian denomination, the Lutherans, the Anglicans, all of the Protestants.
She made a little soundbite here.
Martin Luther, John Calvin called it like what you would do with a prostitute. Like, of course you wouldn't do contraception.
Martin Luther and John Calvin called contraception what you would do with a prostitute. Lo and behold, in Casti Connubii, I think it's 65, says the same thing, because he brings up St. Augustine. If you're using your spouse to not get pregnant, that's prostitution material. So your wife is prostitute on NFP. The husband is a paramour, and the father-in-law is a pimp. That's what you get. There's your trinity of prostitution right there with NFP. It's right there in Casti. Sorry. All right. I jumped the gun here a little bit. Let's keep going here.
Why would anyone do that? And then in the Bible, and then the church fathers and doctors speaking out against it, and not just contraception, but against anything that frustrates the sexual act to remove the potential for procreation. And that includes the pull-up method. That includes masturbation, even if it's mutual masturbation, because they're like, well, what about the wife? Why just please the man? Well, even if it's again the sexual pleasure without the potential to be open for life.
Pleasure without the potential to be open. The potential to the potential to be open. No, that's exactly what NFP is. It's seeking the horse and mule. It's seeking the flesh, and they use all these euphemisms. It's just this like super deep, incredible, mega. No, all it is it's pursuit of flesh with no babies. Imagine that. Boy, that's really tough to figure out, isn't it? Not if you're super smart like Lila Rose and everyone else. Only the dummies think this. What I'm saying.
And this is baked into the design for sex. Yeah. And today, this is so controversial to say.
I'm gonna
hear it. but we're completely the opposite today. Mm-hmm. The opposite today, and this is post-sexual revolution largely, but then also like the advent of the birth control of the early 20th century, is that sex is about adult pleasure.
Mm-hmm. NFP is about adult pleasure. What else is it about? Why are you doing NFP? For not for pleasure? What's it for? Love? Unity? No. No. That's what it's for. So dumb. I don't even need to keep talking. It's so dumb.
And then children are optional.
No, children aren't optional. You just have to be open to them. That's all you need to be. You're pursuing your number one goal, horse and mule. That's what you're doing with NFP. Children are optional. No, that's what we call open. This is the crazy, stupid, dumb, quote unquote Catholic talk, modernist talk. We're pursuing Trinitarian love, and we're open to God's blessings. No, what you're doing, you're pursuing the horse and mule, and children are an afterthought that could happen. What did she just say? What did she just say?
And this is post-sexual revolution largely, but then also like the advent of the birth control of the early 20th century, is that sex is about adult pleasure. Mm-hmm. And then children are optional. Some people will not even have children. I was actually on a podcast recently.
Children are optional. That's what it was. Children are optional. Got it.
Are discussing with a very lovely lady, but she's this, dink, very publicly avowed.
Very lovely
I'm going to do a dink podcast.
Do I need to talk? Do I need to keep going here? Let's see. 102.42. Okay, we're done. Yeah, children are optional. That's what she said. Pursuing pleasure, children are optional. That is NFP unvarnished. That's why they call it Catholic contraception. Adult pursuit of pleasure, children optional. That's the definition of NFP. That's all it is. Admit it. That's you. All you're doing is you're just calling something some flowery euphemism when that's not what it is. And the rest of the world knows it, which is why they're like, and then like she's coming out of the closet. She's doing her NFP pride parade here. And everyone's like, whoa. All right. Hold on. 105.05. 105. Whoa, where are we? All right, you guys. Hope you're getting your money's worth. Click like. Leave some angry comments. I can't handle it. It's really hard for me. But man, I don't need friends. 105.01.
I've been using hers
Hold
for...
on.
It's fine, but that wasn't always our case. And so I truly do empathize with people though who are like, struggling with finances. Like they're trying to be responsible. Truly, they're trying to be responsible. They're trying to give their child the best life. And they're saying, I just want to be responsible. I don't want to have I would love to have a big family, but I can't afford a big family. So
I want to be responsible. Like she said, God's in charge. God's got plenty of money. God will be responsible. If you want to be responsible and you think you can't handle a kid, what am I going to say? Don't do the thing that brings kids.
I completely, understand where they are coming from. But I will say, you have the right to discern. And that's another.
You do have the right to discern? No, you don't have the right to change nature. You don't have the right to, this is, like I said, this is why NFP is like a house of cards, all right? Man, crazy. House of cards. Total euphemisms, the whole entire thing, okay? So you don't have a, what did she say? You don't have a right? Oh, you have a right to, discern. Sorry, because all she's really saying is you have a right to use the conjugal act for non-natural purposes.
No one's saying you have to have a bunch of kids, but practicing natural family planning, you still can discern, you can still do these things and still discern. Again, this is like pure Gregory Popchak, man. And then, if the Lord, you're just allowing God's will to bring another soul into this world. And if he...
You're allowing God's world. Did you hear that? You're allowing God's will to bring another soul into this world. No, you're not. You're murdering God's will because you're trying really hard to not do that. It's impossible to totally close it off except through abstinence. Every family planning method is not. That's why Planned Parenthood promotes NFP and any other family, because they know it's going to fail and you're going to come in for your abortion. That's it. That's why they do that. They want to keep that going.
Really looks at your life and is like, no, like you've been blessed enough. You've done your part. Like I see where you are in life.
I want to replay that. It was so good.
Practicing natural family planning, you still can discern. You can still do these things. And then, if the Lord, you're just allowing God's will to bring another soul into this world. And if he truly looks at your life and is like, no, like you've been blessed enough. You've done your part.
You've done your part. You've been blessed enough. Then let God determine that. It's called menopause. That's when it stops. That's what Father Ripperger says. And God's going to determine all the numbers of kids and when they're going to happen. You know what I'm saying? If you're doing the nature, then the nature is going to happen, and God's in charge of that.
I see where you are in life. I just truly believe he'll take care of you. And
then why do the NFP?
And again, we're not saying you have to go have a bunch of kids. It's like, no, you
do have to have a bunch of kids. We already explained that. It's murder if you don't. You got to have as many kids as you can within reason. I shouldn't say that within reason. You don't have to max out the number of kids. That's what the penitentiary said. It doesn't matter if you use the infertile times as long as you're not trying to avoid pregnancy.
You have NFP, where it gives you that ability to discern.
Even the garden, it gives you the ability to use nature to thwart nature. That's all you're doing. It's evil. You go to hell for it.
And the Catholic Church teaching, so I have this app called Truthly that we use on the show sometimes. I want to just read this for people because I think it's so illuminating.
Truthly is an AI-generated app which gives you effectively, all Truthly does is give you the political correct modernist version of what the internet says marriage is for, which is it just reads Vatican II.
Actually know what the church teaches about NFP. So I'm going to say, what does
603? We're too far. Hang on. She just goes on about this Truthly junk. Hang on. That's all Truthly is. We need to go to 10645 and we're almost there. So we'll just fast forward this.
This is an app, Truthly, that gives you all of the teachings of the Catholic Church, as well as just Bible, theology, philosophy, about bioethics, and about just life.
Hang on, she's going on with her Truthly stuff.
Church
she's a mad texter too. She texts really
Families
fast.
Across Washington.
Hold on. God's plan for marriage is to regulate births. Yeah, like I said, NFP is nothing but a house of cards. And if you don't say what they're actually saying, it maintains itself, which is why the NFPers don't allow criticism. They shut it down. You're blocked. They don't respond, whatever. Like it says in Pascendi, when the modernists are confronted with a good argument, they have a conspiracy of silence against you.
And there's all of these lists for why the church supports NFP, but NFP respects the natural rhythms and fertility cycles of a woman's body.
So does artificial contraception respect the natural rhythms and fertility of a woman's body. It respects it because it doesn't want it, and it works with the body to thwart it. That's all NFP does, is it thwarts the body.
Promoting openness to life while allowing couples to discern their family size responsibly.
Promoting openness to life while discerning responsibly. You can do that with contraception too. It's all open to life. But like we said, open to life is a nice way of saying no babies. We're closed to life. And Chrissy baby admitted that.
It supports NFP because of openness to life. The church upholds that every marital act should remain open to the possibility of life.
No, the church says that every act must be oriented toward procreation. However, the new code says you have to be, nature is oriented toward good of the spouses in procreation. It can only be oriented toward one thing only. That's nature. Okay, this is why contraception thwarts nature. Otherwise, it doesn't thwart nature, which is why the Pontifical Birth Control Commission in 1966 majority report, like the vast majority of them said, look, if you can do NFP, you can do artificial contraception because it's all legal to not want kids. So what difference does it make how you get there? Okay? It's the purpose of nature and the orientation. That reminds me, let's go to the chart here a second and talk about, hold on a second, let me find it. Let me find it just a minute. We're going to skip a little bit to the French version of Saint Francis de Sales, where he talks about what animals do and why they do it. The elephant, although a gross beast, is yet the most decent and most sensible of any upon earth. I will give you a specimen of his chastity. Although he never changes his female, he hath so tender a love for her that he has chosen, yet he never couples with her. Notice they use nice, modest language with her, but at the end of every 3 years, and then only to space of 5 days, so privately that he has never seen the act. On the 6th day afterwards, when he makes his appearance, the first thing he does is go directly to some river and wash his body, blah, blah, blah. Okay. May not these modest dispositions of such animals serve as lessons to married people, and not to keep their affections engaged in those sensual and carnal pleasures, which, according to their vocation, they have exercised, but when they are past, to wash their heart of affection, purify themselves as soon as possible, and afterwards with freedom of mind they may practice action more pure and elevated. Okay? So he's saying it's like even the beasts know it's for procreation. That's the point. Hold on, let's go back.
Talks about respect for the body, marital bonds, virtue of self-control, conformity with moral law. Now I want to ask it...
Moral law, yes. So there's all kinds of ways to exercise good virtue, but you don't have to thwart nature to do that, okay?
Why? This is back to the question of mutual masturbation, because they're like, yeah, okay, no contraception. Yeah. We're going to do mutual masturbation. That's going to be, I'm using like technical terms, I'm like cringing, but that's what we're talking real here. Yes. So why should every marital act, and by marital act we mean sexual act of intimacy, right? Mm-hmm. Why should this isn't like a kiss on the cheek or a long drawn out kiss. Even. This is, we're talking sexual activity that involves pleasure and orgasm. So why should every marital act be open to life, and why would mutual masturbation be wrong in a marriage? Marital intimacy is intended to be both unitive and procreative.
That's more AI junk right there. To be unitive and procreative. Unity is now number one. That's effectively, that is, as we've said before, the marital debt is second place to unity, which is somebody's decision that they feel it's got to be mutual, in other words. Marital debt is out because marital debt says it doesn't have to be mutual because I have the right, okay? They're saying, no. Unity says it must be mutual, so there is no more right to the debt. This is what I'm trying to get through to Tim Gordon, but he blocked me.
A deep expression of love between the spouses and open to life.
Deep expression of love. What is a deep expression of love legally? It's nothing. There's no way. This is why divorce is not a sin. And now apparently adultery is not a sin anymore either. You can still get communion when you're living in adultery because it's all about the deep expression of love. That's our number one thing. That's the purpose, which she's going to admit later in the video.
Ways. These two aspects are inseparably linked and together reflect God's design for marriage. Regarding mutual masturbation within marriage, the church teaches that sexual acts must respect both the unitive and the procreative purposes of sexuality.
You don't have to respect purposes. You just have to follow nature. And as we said, nature has one purpose, procreation. That's what nature has. But we have decided that we have to create a new nature, which is deep love or something. That's the new nature. That's not nature. It's a creation to legally justify family planning. That's why all Catholics contracept, because they're like, who cares? NFP is lame.
Mutual masturbation deliberately separates the unitive act from the procreative potential, focusing slowly on personal gratification rather than the comprehensive giving and openness to life intended in marital intimacy. And to get super theological here, it's always love always has to say yes to the whole of the other person.
Love has nothing to do with the institution of marriage. And Paul VI said that in 1976 to the Rota. He's like, marriage exists independent of love. There was something that I think I missed in the truthly thing, which she said. It said about marriage as the unity is a purpose. Let me see if I got that. Let's keep going. I might have to replay this. Hang on.
Not part.
Yes.
And that's the design of sex. Like it's complete. I'm giving myself to you and I'm receiving you to me. And I'm not going to separate that out like mutual masturbation. I'm not going to separate that out like the pull-out method. I'm not going to separate that out with a barrier of latex. Like I'm fully yours, you're fully mine. And we put our fertility in the hands of God. Now, if we feel there's a serious reason to, again, delay pregnancy, space births, whatever it might be.
More euphemisms. If there's a serious reason to use nature so that we don't have a natural purpose, okay? If there's a serious reason to violate nature, there is no reason, however grave, is what Pius the 11th said in Casti 54.
That's what abstinence is for. Where now we can sit side.
More euphemisms. That's what abstinence is for. Like when priests are abstinent, and Christ was abstinent, so our spouses have to be abstinent too. That's
by side, which is holy. Look at each other across the table, which is also holy, and have spiritual intimacy together, emotional intimacy together.
See, she's saying all this intimacy is number one. That's what is number one. Unity, emotional intimacy, number one. That means do what I say, because the woman is basically in charge of the emotional intimacy regulator. You know what I mean? And so that's what Adam went wrong in the first place. Is he said, "Oh, yeah, I don't want to mess up my emotional intimacy. So Eve, we're going to go ahead and eat the fruit because you've discerned that that's cool, and you got tricked." So men can't go along with this baloney. Okay, the Pied Piperess here, the NFP mediatrix.
Intellectual intimacy together, and that physical intimacy we have is that really, I would say in some ways, the peak. It is the peak intimacy we can experience together physically, but you don't have to always do that.
Yes, and I actually
have intimacy spiritually.
I want to touch on that because that's another thing. People are like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, we grow intimate and such on a deeper level. So when you have to remove that physical aspect, you can grow so much closer in a way that you probably wouldn't have if that was there.
So they're saying you don't need the marital debt. This is what they're talking about. And that all these chicks talking about, I don't want to have my 17 kids and I don't want to have to do what 1 Timothy whatever says. I will be saved through childbearing. So we're going to create this new God of unity, which is effectively feminism.
And so it's been truly a gift. Honestly, I always say, we're channeling our inner Joseph and Mary.
Brutal. Okay, so they're how should I put this? They're channeling their inner Joseph and Mary. They're saying that unity is the highest and the best, and therefore, when someone insists on marital debt, they're violating unity. Now, I need to go back and find the one clip where it says that unity is a purpose, and we're going to talk about that. Okay, here it is. I found it. Let's listen. She's talking about her Truthly app. What Truthly says the purpose or purposes of the conjugal act is.
The church teaches that sexual acts must respect both the unitive and the procreative purposes.
The unitive and the procreative purposes. That's a legal term, purpose, okay? The unitive purpose. We don't know what the legal definition of the unitive purpose is, but wait a minute. Is it a purpose? Is that because nature has a purpose? I guess the natural purpose of the conjugal act is a unitive one. Really? Okay. Which one's primary? When NFP is legal, the unitive purpose is primary, which is this spiritual intimacy and all kinds of intimacy. That's all that matters is intimacy, which is why they legalize contraception, or which is why all Catholics contracept anyway, because it's all about intimacy and unity dig it, however they want to get it. Not about procreation. But wait a minute. Let's look at Humanae Vitae, shall we? Check this out. Check this out right here. Okay, I'm going to see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Here, right here. This particular doctrine, okay, listen up, you guys. Humanae Vitae right here, often expounded on by the magisterium of the church. So this is more kind of gaslighting. It's like really super duper churchy. Is based on the inseparable connection established by God, okay? Oh, okay, yeah. Which man on his own initiative, the unitive significance and the procreative significance, not purpose. The unitive significance, that means sign, S-I-G-N, sign. So there's a doctrine that we have to have the unitive significance and the procreative significance. All that means is procreation must happen in marriage, like Christ and his church are the sign, the icon of marriage, right? Right. But not the nature of marriage. This is what they mix up. They're saying that this is why we have all this, the spiritual meaning, the theology of the body. No, it's the biology of the body. That's all we got when we're talking marriage. It's the biology of the body. There are signs, but that signs aren't nature. A significance is not nature. So the unitive significance means the inseparable, that you have Christ and the church are inseparable. That's the unitive significance. Has nothing to do with the conjugal act being super lovey, super deep, super meaningful, super bonding, super any of that. But they're using the sign and they're making it in, they're shoehorning it into nature and the legal definition. That was the point I wanted to make. Let's go back to the rest. That was basically it for Chrissy and Lila, talking all about how the sign is now nature. And this is why this house of cards uses all the euphemisms and needs to be thrown rocks at. Let's listen to what she said in her follow-up when she got huge pushback from everybody because this is a bunch of baloney, okay? And I'm glad because hopefully we start to expose what NFP is and what it looks like. That you have your podcast Pride Parade, NFP Pride. Hello? Let's listen to what she says.
Christ, the most perfect man to ever walk the earth, was celibate and sinless before he was crucified for our sins.
Celibacy is big, right? Christ was celibate, so your husband can be celibate too because we're trying to pursue unity.
Shouldn't he be the supreme model for manhood? Self-mastery, discipline.
Shouldn't he be the supreme model for manhood? Okay, so you're coming at me with your marital debt. That's not Christ-like.
Total self-gift, all out of love. Priests choose celibacy so their hearts can belong entirely to God, as St. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 7:32-35. I want you to be free from anxieties. The unmarried man is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to please the Lord. But the married man is anxious about worldly things, how to please his wife, and his interests are divided. I say this for your own benefit, to secure your undivided devotion to the Lord. Abstinence isn't just for priests. Intermittent abstinence can also be a beautiful practice within marriage.
Abstinence, so she's saying, look, Christ was abstinent, priests are abstinent, husbands have to be abstinent too, because unity is number one, which she's going to get to. Just hang on. But look, here's more euphemisms. Abstinence in marriage. What she's saying is violating nature in marriage to produce no babies, because unity, whatever that is the goal. Because unity is like the Trinity. Unity is like God. It's the unitive purpose, because that's what my truthfully AI Catholic info frickin' thing told me.
If a couple has a serious reason to delay bringing a baby into the world.
That's more a serious reason to delay bringing a baby in the world. Okay, that's another way of saying I can have an abortion because I have a serious reason to delay bringing a baby into the world. It's just a nice way of putting it. How are we going to if you want to delay the baby, don't do the thing which brings babies. But no, we want that because unity is the goal, isn't it?
When practicing natural family planning, NFP, spouses can grow in self-mastery, deepen their love, and remain faithful to God's design for marriage.
There's a lot of ways to practice to grow in self-mastery. There's a lot of ways to deepen love. And there's a lot of ways there's only one way to remain faithful to God's design in marriage, and that is chastity. There was one thing I think we missed. I got to find it. Oh, no, she's coming up to it. We're going to talk about chastity in a minute. Casti Connubii speaks all about this. you have to comply with nature. It's not just about none of this duty, none of this moral law stuff. Nature needs to be described and defined. The purpose of nature is kids. Since NFP is not trying to pursue the purpose of nature, we just dress it up in euphemisms, and that's all that the pro-abortion lobby does. However, they know now that they don't even try to admit anymore it's not a baby. They just come around and say, yeah, I killed my baby and it's great. So eventually, this is kind of the coming out party for NFP, I guess, this Lila Rose thing. She's coming right out and she's like, hey, I'm out and proud. This is it. And everyone's like, whoa, because obviously it steps on the toes of marital debt. I've been saying that for a long time, Timothy Gordon, who says marriage, the conjugal act must be unitive. He's like, no, that just means physical. Well, the conjugal act must be the conjugal act. No, that's not what it means. She's saying it right here. She's the one who's coming out and saying it. Unity is the groovy vibe, the one soul thing, the one flesh union.
Christ is the model. Love is the reason. Holiness is the goal.
Boom. Christ is the model. No, Christ is not the model for the constitution of marriage. The constitution of marriage, the contract of marriage, is not Christ. It is the right over the body to make babies, okay? Yes, we must love like Christ, but the definition of marriage is not Christ, okay? Right? It's a contract for babies. Love is the reason. That's like saying love is the purpose, okay? Love is the drug I'm thinking of. That's all she's saying. If love is the reason, and then however we need to get there, and by the way, like we said, she ends up being the NFP dominatrix, because she says, I'm going to dominate this conversation on what love is. I'm going to tell you what love is. Obviously, it works both ways, because the husband's going to say, you're not loving because you're not honoring the marital debt. But she say, no. Love is unity. So marital debt is one way. We have to both be on the same page. So I'm not going to have the 17 kids. I'm going to say love means we're going to have 4 kids. That's it. And I'm going to pound you with all this stuff from JP2 and servant leadership and mutual submission. And if that doesn't work, we can always separate or get a divorce, because that's not a sin, because it's all about unity. It's not about strictly biology and rights. I've done that, other videos about that too. But that's the key phrase in the end. She blows it out of the water right there in her coming out party with this statement.
Is the goal. So this postness is the goal. It's designed for marriage. Christ is the model. Love is the reason. Holiness is the goal.
Love is the reason. Sorry, procreation is the reason. That's her whole problem. And you can't have your NFP and have procreation be the purpose at the same time. Sorry, Timothy Gordon. I think we're still going on. Let's see. We go to 222. All right, so that's it. Let's go to 708. We're almost done, kids. Hang with me, all right? 708. Isn't this fun? 708. Where are we? Okay, right there. Hopefully we don't get a commercial.
Married or celibate. Chastity is for married people. And what is chastity? Chastity is about loving the other person.
Woo! What is chastity, she says. Okay, let's find out, shall we? Let's go. Where are we? What is chastity? Let me see if we can find that. It's right up here. Let me see. We're going to go to Father John Hardin's Catholic Dictionary, where he talks about defining chastity, all right? Where are we? Right here. There it is, Father John Hardin. The virtue that moderates the desire of sexual pleasure according to the principles of faith and right reason. Got to have our reason right. In married people, chastity moderates the desire in conformity with their state in life. Marriage. Marriage. What is that? Okay, is it a dweem within a dweem, that blessed arrangement? It's the right over the body for acts. That's what it is. Can't change it. You can say a different thing, but you're wrong. Nature can't change. The church can't change what that is. No pope can change the natural purpose of the conjugal act. No pope is allowed to say marriage is oriented toward the good of the spouses. Even though canon law says that, it's wrong. It's all based on the poetic modernist feelings of Vatican II, which aren't binding because Paul VI said they weren't in the end. He says nothing here is binding unless we openly declare it. So that's all the new catechism is, and the new code of canon law with this stuff. It's just Spirit of Vatican II love poetry put into law. You have to be careful. You can watch my last video about when I talked to the pastor about what the catechism really says about the marital contract. Otherwise, we'd be here all night. Now, let's see what else he says about chastity. Okay, it suggests refraining from all acts or thoughts that are not in accordance with the church's teaching about the use of one's reproductive powers. Okay, the reproductive powers and church's teaching. Procreation is primary. It says it in Casti Connubii 17. Lila Rose says, yeah, procreation is primary, but love is the meaning, and unity is essential. In unity, you can't have procreation without unity. Therefore, we got to have unity first. Therefore, if NFP is cool, then procreation is secondary. Okay, so we're turning marriage on its head to try to get this. It particularly stresses the restraint. Okay. Okay, all right. I think that's it for chastity. Let's while we're on this, we're going to go through this thing, and then we're going to finish up her video. Let's just go through this whole thing because there's some really good stuff in here. We've got through half of it. We got through some of it. Some of these notes. All right. All right. We got through that. We got through that. Hold on. Yes. 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 Okay. This is, like I talked earlier about Pius XII midwives. Cool. Look what he says. This is the definition of NFP, which is convoluted and goofy, but this is what he says. To embrace the matrimonial state, to use continually the faculty property to the state. So it's not abstinence, it's continual use. NFP is continual use. It's not abstinence. To use continually marriage and at the same time to avoid its primary duty without a grave reason would be a sin against the very nature of married life. Look at that word nature. Ooh, can't have that. So you can violate nature if you have a grave reason? No, you can't. This is why Pius XII created something that's neither fish nor fowl. He made a huge mess because he said for the first time ever, baby production is a duty. Therefore, you can, if you have a grave reason, you can not do your duty. Kind of like you have a duty to go to Mass every Sunday. If you have grave reason, you don't have to go to Mass. It's nature. And he says a sin against the very nature of married life. He doesn't say a sin against nature because that would he would obviously be contradicting himself. He can't say that. So he said the nature. And if you look at a bunch of other the way that this is used in other pro-NFP pieces, they don't say against the very nature. They say something else. They scrub this word out. The meaning. That's it. The meaning. Yes, marriage is just a meaning. Okay. No, marriage is not a meaning. It's a contract of nature and law. All right. Translation. That's the word I was looking for. So Vatican II came in and cleaned this up. And then Pope Francis had the coming out party with the Amoris Laetitia, and Lila Rose is having her coming out party saying it's all about love. So if you have a grave reason, you can not have the babies because it's just a duty anyway, which is total Protestant. I've talked about this in other videos, so we don't need to go through that. All right, we've got through this. Oh, while we're at it, let's talk a little about our friend, the man, Saint Francis de Sales. Everyone's read Introduction to the Devout Life. Super good book. If you look at the version that's everywhere out there, it's scrubbed. It's just English translation. They got rid of the original, which is in French, and I have the link to it in, there it is. There's a link right there. You can go to it. It says the French version. This is like the main one, all right? This is the part that I've never read before. Some nice lady in Austin pointed this out to me, and I started checking it out. Let's go through it, shall we? The Sanctity of the Marriage Bed, chapter 34. The marriage bed ought to be undefiled, the apostle says. I kept him on cleanness. I'm going to skim through this and get to the yellow part, okay? There's a lot of good stuff in here. I want you to read all of it later on your own. So they talk about how the difference between eating and the conjugal act, okay? Eating is ordained toward our preservation. Yeah. Principal end of marriage. Okay, hang on a second. We'll get to the good part. As to eat for the preservation of life, but to keep up mutual intercourse for condescension we owe each other is a thing of both lawful and just. So is the mutual and lawful condescension of the parties united in marriage called by St. Paul a debt. So the marriage debt, St. Paul says, so obligatory a nature that he allows neither of the parties exemption from it. Okay, Lila Rose? Holy cow, girlfriend. You don't get an exemption from the obligatory nature he allows, the marital debt. You don't get it. What about unity, says Lila Rose? Isn't love the reason? No, not in the institution of marriage. It may be your reason, but it's not what the Catholic Church says, the institution of marriage. No one is exempt from the debt without the voluntary consent of the other, all right? So this is why they say NFP must be mutual. However, NFP on its face is it's predicated on two purposes to the conjugal act: unity, which we've already covered, and procreation. So therefore, it doesn't have to be voluntary, because if unity is number one, then I can say, sorry to your marital debt, because I have the right to unity. And I'm feeling that when you're coming at me with this marital debt, that's not loving, that's not unitive. Whoa, Jack, have some NFP, okay? That's all these feminist girls are talking about. And John Paul II is cheering them on. Man, okay. Without the voluntary consent of the other, not even for the exercises of devotion. So if I have a really good reason, I want to just pray. Nope, marital debt. As I have already observed in the chapter on Holy Communion, how much less then may I... So in the chapter on Holy Communion, he probably says deny communion to people who don't do the debt. I bet you that's what it says. How much less then may either party be dispensed from the debt through a capricious pretense of virtue, or through anger or disdain? Wow. That is a killer blow to NFP right there, Lila Rose. You can't be dispensed from the marital debt through caprice, like I really want to, or pretense of virtue. It's Christ abstained. Father, what's his name? The priest abstained, Father, the celebrity priest I keep talking about. What's his face? The super masculine guy. That guy. He's virtuous, right? So husband, you need to be virtuous too. You can't be dispensed, right? Even if you think it's virtuous. No. Or through anger, like we talked about, women's anger. It gets a little nuts, and it blows through everything. Or disdain. You don't want to have kids. You don't want to have the marital debt. You think it's ununitive. You think it's disdainful. Too bad. Sorry. You shouldn't have gotten married. This is why marriages stayed together. Everyone had 17 kids, and everyone knew this is the way it was, and you go to hell if you don't do it. So you ask for grace to deal with it. That's what you do. You don't take a pill for it, a.k.a. NFP. Oh, this is like pure gold, as they say. This paragraph right, this little sentence, we should go over it again, but we're not. You can go over it again on your own. That's a good one. So the marriage debt should always be paid faithfully. Okay, faithful. Yeah, that's faith's part of marriage. That's permanence. I mean, that's exclusivity. And freely, as if it were in hopes of having children. Wow. If it were up to me, you wouldn't be here. That's her quote, Chrissy Horton said. She didn't hope to have children, because if it was up to her, she wouldn't have any children. Woo! Girlfriend, you're in trouble. Although on some occasion, there might be no such expectation. Okay, so this is where we get into Casti Connubii 59, because he's saying sometimes you don't have babies. Sometimes there might not be an expectation for a baby because of natural infertility, menopause, pregnancy, stuff like that. Hold that thought. Hang on a minute. Let's get there. All right. So they talk about, okay. So they talk about eating. Don't eat too much. Eating is good for you and all that kind of stuff. But they also say in excess of eating, it is honey, which is so proper and wholesome a food for bees, may nevertheless become hurtful. Sometimes they may make them sick if they eat too much of it, being overcharged with the forepart of their front legs. Okay. St. Francis de Sales was pretty cool. He knew a lot about animals and a lot about nature. You have too much honey, like Tigger. You end up not liking it. It's not good. Okay. In like manner, nuptial commerce, see how nice and modest that is? Lila Rose, every fifth word out of Lila Rose's mouth is sex. They don't say that. It's not in Casti Connubii either. It only starts coming out in Humanae Vitae. It's a Planned Parenthood, Janet Smith kind of term. They keep talking about that all the time. Natural commerce, very modest, which is so holy and just and commendable in itself and so profitable to the commonwealth. Yes, if it's done correctly, if it's done in accordance with nature in marriage, so you're not bringing just more original sin into the world for people to go to hell, you got to raise them to go to heaven, is nevertheless in certain cases dangerous to those who exercise it. Whoa! It's dangerous to those who exercise it. How's that? Danger in what way? Let's talk about that. What do you mean, St. Francis de Sales? For it frequently debilitates the soul with venial sin, as in cases of mere and simple excess. So if you're getting into your theology of the body real hard, if you're trying to find some deep, meaningful oneness in here and it's just not happening, and also that's where the sin, perfecting the art of sinning subtly. It's Casti 108. They're talking about early Christopher West when they're talking about getting really into everything that surrounds the conjugal act, the love aspect, the unity aspect. Okay, and sometimes it kills effectually by mortal sin. The conjugal act kills by mortal sin, really. Not just venial sin, mortal sin in the conjugal act. I thought it was totally unitive and great and everything like that, and it's God's plan. What are we talking about? As when the order appointed for the procreation of children is violated and perverted. Woo! The order appointed for procreation of children. You mean that's like nature? Yeah. There's order? Yeah. What's that order? Procreation primarily. So if you violate that, that's mortal sin, a.k.a. family planning is mortal sin. All family planning is mortal sin because you are violating the order. You're trying to not do the order. You're turning it upside down. You're having unity number one because unity is essential now after Vatican II. No, actually, it's poetry, and Humanae Vitae says it's a sign. It's not nature. It's not a purpose. It's not an end. It's a sign. That's all it is. Christ and his church always are unified. That's a sign of marriage being permanent, but that's not the physical act. Has to be a feeling of unity. Sorry, that's how you get gay marriage. That's why as soon as contraception came out, everyone said it's going to lead to gay marriage because it's all about unity number one. In which case, and procreation is second. Yeah, if no babies come, yeah, it's God's will. Okay, because it's about unity. Gays can get married. In which case, as one departs more or less from it, the sins are more or less abominable, but they are always mortal. So you can do if you do any NFP, even a little bit of NFP, it's more or less abominable, but it's always mortal. If you're trying to use a method to not get pregnant, a little bit or a lot, no. Go to hell for that. For the procreation of children being the principal end of marriage. That end means purpose. End, yeah. Like they said, unity is the purpose now. Love is the purpose, according to Lila Rose. Nope. You got to use that word end or purpose. You can't use significance. You can't use meaning. You can't use, there's a whole bunch of other euphemisms for that. I can't think of them all now. They use a bunch of different ones. You have to look for the word end or purpose. If it's not an end or a purpose, it's not part of the natural constitution of marriage. And there can be there's no such thing as the love end or the love purpose because that's not nature. Otherwise, there's no order. If quote unquote Lila Rose unity and procreation are both essential and inseparable, then one cannot come first. They're both primary, which is an impossibility. There's no order, in other words. And if there's no order, there's no definition. Principal end of marriage, one may never lawfully depart from the order which that end requires. Lawful. Marriage is a legal construct. Okay, it's not a covenant. If it is a covenant, it's a contract covenant, the same thing. And it's a solemn contract because God's watching it, all right? So you can't violate the contract till death. Never lawfully depart from the order which the end requires. Though on account of some, here it gets good, listen to this, you guys. On account of some accident or circumstance, it cannot at that time be brought about. Pregnancy cannot be brought about on account of some accident or circumstance. It happens when barrenness, okay? So some people just can't have kids. That's God's department, not yours, all right? Right. Yeah. So barrenness is out of your hands, okay? Or pregnancy, that's out of your hands, so to speak. When you're pregnant, that doesn't violate nature to do the conjugal act. However, there's no purpose in it. Hang on, bear with me. Or prevents generation. So when these things prevent generation, the conjugal act can be illicit, but still, the saints are saying, like, during pregnancy, it's thumbs down, don't do that. Okay, it's not cool, it's not good, doesn't make any sense. It's like, why would you plant a seed in the ground if you've already planted a seed in the ground? Why would you keep planting seeds? For no reason, okay? You're violating the order. You are and you aren't, okay? And same with during menopause. It's natural, it's legal, it's okay, but it's really, unless you're like Elizabeth and you're 88 and you think God's telling you to have a baby, you know what I mean? It's like, so I think I'm going to find one other quote about this, and hang on a second. Yeah, while I'm on this topic, here's the Pope way back when, 1st century AD. This kind of chastity, since St. Clement of Rome, is also to be observed, that sexual intercourse must not take place heedlessly or for the sake of pleasure, but for the sake of begetting children. So during pregnancy, that ain't happening, so don't do it. And since this observance is found even amongst some of the lower animals, as if it were shame not to be observed by men. So it's natural to procreation alone. That's nature. If you're not trying to do procreation alone, you're lower than an animal, and you're just dressing it up as love, okay? So it would be a shame if you did that, if not be observed by men, reasonable and worshiping God. All right, that's it. And Thomas Aquinas says the same thing, but I want to find the part where they talk about during. Here's the part about the seed I was talking about, chastity of Christians with respect to marriage. Nature itself tells us that through our inborn instinct that it is unreasonable and unnatural to sow a seed in the same place where a seed is already growing. All right, so during pregnancy, it's a little bit of a weird area there, but because you can't always tell when you're pregnant and all that stuff. Basically, it's not cool. Let's listen to what St. Clement of Alexandria says about during pregnancy, okay? To a spiritual man, so he's saying people who are trying to do God's will, not just, okay, to a spiritual man after conception, his wife is as a sister or treated as the same father, okay? And then, so you treat your wife as a sister after conception to the spiritual man, because so you still have the legal right for remedy of concupiscence, but it's still like venial sin. It's like if you can't, or if you have no other route, you can't contain yourself because you're not a spiritual man. You're like, you just can't hang on. Okay, but it's not cool. I'm not clear on whether it's a venial sin or not. It depends on how dire the situation is, but don't do it if you're half normal, okay? Hang on a second. St. Clement pointed out the Jewish scriptures, it was not a single instance in which one of the ancients approached a pregnant woman and taught that avoidance of sexual relations at one time of one's pregnancy to the time of a child's weaning is a law of nature given by God. So even at the time of child's weaning, so during while she's nursing too. Look, dude, you want abstinence, you want to grow in your faith, you want to grow, you want to find your spot of abstinence, you're trying to get discipline. Like she said earlier, Chrissy Horton says it's really steamy and cool when her husband has self-control. How about during nursing? Because she's not going to, it's legal and all, but it's not really cool because she's not going to get pregnant. So you want times of abstinence during nursing and during pregnancy. There's a lot of abstinence for you right there. You don't, like Joe Rogan has his own Lent, Sober October. NFP had to create its own abstinence because all the traditional abstinence times during nursing or during pregnancy are out. Now then, let's get back to where we were. Right here. So they talk about sometimes, and that's what Casti Connubii says also. There, you can't pervert the order of nature, except it doesn't violate nature if there's an accident of infertility. So stuff that's not in your hands, basically. You can, so any type of planning is in your hands. That's why that is an imposed or a man-made infertility. Therefore, you cannot pursue that and call it nature. That's a violation of nature when you do it. But when infertility naturally happens because of menopause, pregnancy, or someone can't have kids, whatever, then that doesn't violate nature. That's God's plan. God's doing that stuff, okay? But you don't do that stuff. That's like saying I'm gonna plan to not go to mass because I think it's good for me. Nope. Gotta go. Got a duty. Gotta go. Okay. Oh, look at this. Corporal commerce. How modest. These occurrences of corporal commerce may still be just and holy provided the rules of generation be followed. What are the rules of generation? We have to get into that. That's more St. Alphonsus and St. Aquinas and stuff. The rules of generation are you've got to be pursuing pregnancy, and if you just can't hang on because there's some reason why your wife's not going to get pregnant because of menopause or because of pregnancy or because of nursing, and you or during menses, and you just can't keep it together or whatever, the church allows you to pursue the secondary ends, but it's venial sin, man. I mean, it's like it's still licit, but it's not cool. But you can't. It's like not good. All right. So there's more that could be said on that, but that gets confusing for people. No accident whatsoever being able to prejudice in law where the principal end of marriage has been imposed. No accident whatsoever being able to prejudice the law. You can't say that, well, because I'm infertile, it's okay to pursue something. I can pursue love. Wrong. You can't. Nope. And this is why NFP is based on this whole love first business. All right. Now, look, the H word. He talks about certain heretics. What are these heretics doing? What does St. Francis de Sales say these heretics are doing? Certain heretics of our days are much more blamable than the cynics of whom St. Jerome speaks in his commentary in the Epistle to the Ephesians, have been pleased to say that it was the perverse intention of only that wicked man which displeased God. The scripture positively asserts the contrary, which asserts as the act itself. Okay, so what he's saying here is Onan. He's talking about Onan. Okay, there it is right there. Sorry. The heretics say that Onan got killed because he didn't give his brother-in-law or whatever an heir. No, that's not why it was. It was because of his perverse intention. He perverted the order. He's a heretic. Heretics pervert the order. NFP, family planning, perverts the order. It is a heresy to say love is number one, love wins. NFP created love wins. The gays ran with it. The homos ran with it. And now NFP runs with it. And now it's on display with Lila Rose. And she's like, how do you like my coming out pride party, my pride NFP parade? It's like, whoa. It's a perverse intention, and it's a heresy. Man. So they put the cart before down. So Onan reversed the order, and he got killed by lightning. God struck him down. You want to get killed? Pervert the order. How do you do that? By pursuing unity and telling your husband he doesn't need the marital debt. In fact, he has no right to the marital debt because we have the right to unity now. Lila Rose told me, John Paul II told me, and all the bishops tell me. Okay, so we already talked about the elephant here. He's saying even the animals know it's for procreation. St. Thomas Aquinas says the same thing. It's for procreation. That's nature. We have certain nature common with animals. We eat, we sleep, we make babies. That's nature. That's what it's for. Imagine that. People used to know that stuff. Okay, we already got through that. Okay, so yes. Where else? Hang on a second. Now, let me just see if there's anything here we got to read. According to St. Non-corporal satisfaction, diverse spiritual. I put this all in here because you guys can read it. I want you to go through the show notes and read it yourself, so we don't have to like ramble on here. It is a great evil of man, said St. Augustine, to desire to. Oh, this is pretty good. Let those use the world, said the same apostle, as though they used it not. Let everyone use this world according to his calling, but in such manner as not engaging in his affection in it. Okay? None of this deep unity spiritual stuff. He may be as free and ready to serve God as if he had not. Just like they said back in the day, the Bible says time is short. Act like you don't have a husband. Act like you don't have a wife. Be detached from that. Okay? That's what that means. Theology of the body blows that out of the water and says, no. It's not biology of the body. It's theology of the body. We got to make the husband and wife a Trinitarian God. Let those use the world as though they used it not. We already got through that. It's a great evil, said St. Augustine, to desire to enjoy the things which he should only use. We must use the marital act for procreation. It's a great evil to enjoy that which we should only use. So it's pleasure and stuff is okay, but if you're using it in the right order, that's the point. We should enjoy spiritual things and only use corporal. Theology of the body says the body is a spiritual thing now. Boom. So we got to get all into it. And then Christopher West goes, he takes his rocket ship and points it to the moon and all that stuff. He makes the body a spiritual thing. He needs to divinize the body. That's what he talks about. He uses that word, divinize, of which when use is turned into enjoyment, aka unity, Lila Rose, our rational soul is changed into brutish and beastly soul. Woo! Horses and mules who have not understanding, the devil hath power. There's two reasons for the act. Babies or horses and mules. And the devil has power, and your rational soul is changed into a brutish and beastly soul. And then you can't have sight of what God's plan is, which is the marital debt. That is the structure. Now, look what he says in the end. St. Francis de Sales, I think I have said all that I would say to make myself understood. In other words, he's not going to get into the nitty-gritty details and all the specifics. He's saying if you have goodwill, peacefully accept what I'm saying and apply it instead of trying to hold your mouth just the right way and find the loophole to do whatever the heck you want in the name of whatever, without saying that which I would not say. So he's not going to say all the immodest stuff. He's going to say, focus, pay attention, be humble, do what God wants. I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritty details. That's what he's saying, okay? St. John Chrysostom, Golden Mouth, men who are avaricious and desirous to avoid children avoid children as a burden, mutilate nature. Nature is mutilated. If you take an axe and chop up a tree, you're mutilating nature, but it's okay because it's fine to do that. But the point is, it doesn't matter what you're thinking in your head when you're swinging the axe. You could love the tree, you could hate the tree. You're breaking up a tree no matter what. So it doesn't matter what your reason is for avoiding children. You're mutilating nature if you're using the conjugal act to not get the children. That's basically what he's saying. Men are desires to avoid children as a burden, mutilate nature. They mutilate nature if they use the conjugal act, obviously, because being celibate, being chaste, being abstaining from the conjugal act is not mutilating nature. Right. That's what that means. Obvious. So
instead of I'm going to use you for my sexual pleasure,
right here
is about loving the other person and seeing them as a gift, and you yourself are a gift to them, instead of I'm going to use you for my sexual pleasure.
That's another way of saying, that's more euphemisms. I'm going to use you for my pleasure is saying it's got to be a gift, which means mutual every time. Therefore, when you consented, this is why there's no such thing as marital rape, because you consented at the altar. Consent once. Marriage is one consent. It's not consent every time, okay? But if marriage is consent to unity, then you have to consent every time because you got to have unity, baby. So everyone has to agree on everything all the time. Everyone has to agree on the conjugal act. Marital debt is gone with Lila Rose. Gone.
And so if you're entering marriage as a man or a woman to now I get to have sex whenever I want, however I want, wherever I want.
She's exaggerating, of course, but what marriage is, like I said, I'm just beating this up to death so everyone gets it. It's the right over the body, perpetual and exclusive acts which are of themselves. That's an important phrase, of themselves. No qualifier, doesn't have to be loving, doesn't have to be in a human manner like the new canon law says, whatever that means. No one knows what a human manner is. It just has to be generative children. You have to be able to, that's the purpose.
That is not Christian marriage. Christian marriage is about dying to ourselves so we can love the other person. And that Christian marriage that is not Christian marriage. Get to have sex whenever I want, however I want, wherever I want. That is not Christian marriage.
Okay, Christian marriage is natural. Natural marriage is Christian marriage. Christian marriage is a sacrament, which means you get grace. That's all it is. Let's say you have two football players that are identical twins. One's baptized and one's not. They're both the same, but one has grace and one doesn't. But physically, they're both the same. A natural marriage is physically the same as a sacramental marriage. What did she say? Let's go back. Let's do it one more time. We're almost done.
Now I get to have sex whenever I want, however.
Yeah, so she's redefining. Look what she's telling you. She's saying, oh, no. We're going to make it sound really bad. Christopher West does the same thing. That little, he's like, I just get to use you as much as I want. Come here, I get to do. Dude, no. Of course, there's charity, but you do have a right, okay? But she's saying, no, you don't have a right. Marriage is the right to unity, and it happens to allow the conjugal act, but we have to always agree. No, not in 1 Corinthians, what is it? 7:4, whatever, the marital debt. That's it. That's the only law in marriage is the debt.
However I want, wherever I want. That is not Christian marriage.
Wrong.
Christian marriage is about dying to ourselves so we can love the other person. And
Christianity is about dying to yourself and loving the other person. It doesn't have to do with marriage necessarily. Everything Christian is dying to self. Everything Christian. You're a nun, you're consecrated, single, whatever you are, you're a priest, you're dying to self and loving others. Has nothing to do with marriage per se. Okay? I mean, it does, but it's not the constitution. It's not the institution of marriage.
And that might include our passions or our immediate sexual drive or interests.
Fine. You can exercise charity, but that doesn't mean you don't have rights. And those rights are to the body, perpetual and exclusive.
And this doesn't mean we can't have an amazing, full, beautiful sex life with our spouse, but it just means that our sex life should be ordered towards the good of our spouse.
Woo! Look what she did. Coming out party. Oh boy. NFP Pride Parade right there. It should be ordered towards the good of our spouse. What's the good of our spouse? It's what I say is good. Unilateral goodness. I'm judging this is good, and I have to have good. And if I don't have good, because I determine that your marital debt is not good, it's out. Marriage is ordered toward good of the spouses. That's what she just said. That means because marriage is bound by nature, it's an office of nature. Therefore, nature says good of the spouses, number one. That's below the beasts. The brute beasts know that that's not number one, but procreation is. This is how sick this junk is. We're elevating NFP to the stars when it's in Sheol, man. God.
Ordered towards the good of our spouse and not use our spouse.
It's more use your spouse as code for marital debt. Okay. Sorry, honey. You shouldn't have gotten married if you don't want marriage. No one's ever told her this because she's JP2 generation and everything else. Like
your
we all
sex
are.
life is not about your momentary sexual pleasure in that time, right? Your sex life is about loving your spouse.
Need I say more? The body is for procreation, and like Christopher West likes to point out, genitals are for generating. So it's but he should write a book called The Biology of the Body.
And being loved by your spouse.
Okay, super feminist on parade. Love wins. She's sold on love wins. Hopefully she exposes this to enough people that it's satanic garbage, because the tyranny of unity, the tyranny of love, man, you trash nature and you no longer need family permanence. You no longer, because you can't put love in a legal department. Therefore, there's no law. The sixth precept of the church, keep the marriage laws, is under the rug. It's gone. There is no marriage law, because it's the law of love. Love is what you think it is yourself. You've decided this is love is unity, and unity means we both have to agree. So everyone has to opt out. You get to opt out of the marriage debt. No, marriage is freely entered, but you don't get to redefine marriage later. That's what's going on.
And having that approach, I think, changes everything and is different from what the world's approach is, which is that sex is about my pleasure on my terms when I want it.
Okay. We said enough. That's it. We did it. My terms, she's just slamming 1 Corinthians 7:4 and telling you to like it, and she's dressing it up, and she's got John Paul II behind her, backing her up, the whole bit. All right, kids. That was so great. Look, if you're not against NFP, you're not on the team. So go out there and stay toxic. Don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Gen X.
Nobody rules these streets and they